We are live. Welcome to the Windy City End Zone post-game show. I'm your host, Michael Halatek. My co-host, Rome, the Bears fan, will be with me shortly. What a heartbreak at Soldier Field today. They stumbled to 0-4 despite having a great game from Justin Fields. Just an absolutely heartbreaking collapse in the fourth quarter. And we'll get into all of that in just a few minutes. But first, I want to bring you up to date on what's going on in the NFL. Earlier today, the Jacksonville Jaguars defeated the Atlanta Falcons over in London 23-7 in what I think is a huge upset. The Buffalo Bills just absolutely throttled the Miami Dolphins 48-20. It looked like a track meet from the beginning. It was 5 possessions, 5 touchdowns. Buffalo scored, Miami answered, Buffalo scored again, etc. And then later in the second quarter, Buffalo just took off and ended up with a 48-20 victory over what was the previously unbeaten Miami Dolphins. The Minnesota Vikings got their first win of the year, defeating the Carolina Panthers 21-13. The Ravens were all over the Cleveland Browns without Deshaun Watson, 28-3. The Texans manhandled the Pittsburgh Steelers, 30-6. The Rams outlasted the Colts, 29-23. The Buccaneers beat the Saints on the road 26-9. And the Bengals were just pummeled by the Tennessee Titans, falling to 1-3 on the year. Titans winning that game 27-3. And currently in overtime, the Commanders and Eagles are tied at 31. And I got to get my glasses on here, my friends. The Eagles have the ball 1st and 10 on the Washington 48 with 6 minutes to play in overtime. The Chargers took an early 7-0 lead over the Raiders. The Patriots and Cowboys are scoreless with just 4 minutes into that ball game. And the 49ers and Cardinals are also scoreless in the late afternoon games. Later today, we've got the Chiefs at New York to play the Jets. And then tomorrow night, we have the Seahawks versus the Giants in New Jersey. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in my co-host for the Windy City End Zone post-game show, Rome, the Bears fan. Hey. Rome, another heartbreak.
Yeah, it happens. It happens, especially with this team, right? No, I don't. Today was different, wasn't it? We didn't open up waiting for the heartbreak like we did kind of against the Chiefs and in Tampa. I think some of us might have gone in with a little bit of hope, but after the Green Bay game, I mean, have we gone in with any hope? This was a competitive game for the most part.
Well, it was a lopsided game in favor of the Bears for
well,
just
it was
2.5 quarters.
Yeah,
it was 28-7.
Yeah,
Bears.
Yeah,
after Fields threw his 4th touchdown of the game, and all of a sudden an absolute collapse, both offensively and defensively.
Right.
Let's take a look at this. Justin Fields through 3 quarters, 23 of 24. His only incompletion of the first 3 quarters was the Hail Mary incompletion at the end of the first half. That was it.
Right.
285 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, I don't know if it's poor play calling, poor scheming. They took the air out of the ball, but Justin Fields was 5 of 11 for 50 yards. a fumble that got returned for a touchdown, and then the interception on the last offensive play of the game, where I've heard a couple of things. I thought when looking at the replay that Justin Fields anticipated Kmet to continue on his drag route.
Right.
Kmet broke it off and stopped in the hole, thinking that he would throw back over his back shoulder where he would have been wide open.
Right.
But the ball was already gone by the time Kmet stopped and went back the other direction.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The mistakes are all over the team, isn't? I mean, you can look at any player on the roster at this point, and have a game like Justin Fields had, and still a big fumble for return for a touchdown, the interception. Like, it's tough because we finally see the offense that I think most of us thought we were going to see this year, and it just to end with that, with him not being clutch, right? And that's kind of going to be the storyline we're going to see throughout the week too, as the pressure continues to mount on Fields as to whether he has a career in the NFL, or a career with the Bears, at least at this stage. That's kind of been the narrative for a little while now. We saw a lot of hype in the preseason and the off season, and then we see those flashes in that second preseason game, and then the first game of the season, they're just oof. How else do you describe them? So to see a game like this and it go well for so long, I think these are the questions of consistency that we have about Justin Fields and about this offense and about Luke Getsy calling this offense. But to see a game like this, we're going to see a lot of people talking about the interception. We're going to see a lot of people talking about the fumble. It doesn't tell the story of the game, but it's definitely a narrative we're going to hear. We're going to hear a lot about. We're not going to hear the 335 yards and how he finally, overcame the 300-yard game. We're not going to hear about 4 touchdown passes. It's going to be about the interception and the fumble return.
Oh, it sure will. Let's talk for a minute about the defense.
Right.
Because I am sick and tired of seeing this defense play a soft zone when they can't pressure the quarterback. Now, newsflash.
Yeah.
They had a sack today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
They've doubled their entire sack output for the year with their second freaking sack. And, Russell Wilson, it took some time. But in the second half, he literally picked that defense apart. And shame on Coach Eberflus for not changing up. If he changes up that defense and all of a sudden throws some blitzes and some press man coverage on, Russell Wilson's not going to know what hit him.
Right.
But he sat back in his I'm trying. I don't know. Are we going to keep this? Are we going to keep this a family show, or am I going to light it up?
You, buddy, this is our show. How do you want to? Do you want to blow it up? We'll blow it up.
This is a live show, and I've got my wife that just came home, and my dog's
fair.
going
As
nuts.
I drop an F-bomb.
So. If you're going to stay in that goddamn zone, you're not going to win a game the rest of the year. No, I'm sorry. No, it's ridiculous. No. And I will not be surprised if by noon tomorrow that Ryan Poles is speaking to the press saying that Coach Eberflus is no longer in charge. The only problem with that is they've got nobody to run the defense. Yeah. Because Alan Williams left.
Right.
Luke Getsy, he called a hell of a game the first 3 quarters.
Right.
And they were clicking on all 8 cylinders. And then what happened from there, only God knows.
I feel like they're missing a coach on the field as well. I don't feel like there's that leadership element. You know how you hear a lot about how Brian Urlacher led by example. He wasn't necessarily vocal in the locker room, but he was a leader on the field, and I haven't seen that on defense. I I don't know that I've necessarily seen it on offense. Today was obviously a breakout game for Justin. Is he that leader on offense? I thought maybe DJ Moore would come in and kind of show that role, and maybe he will eventually. Roshan Johnson, I think, has the potential to have that role on offense. But as far as defense, I don't see a leader on that defense. I mean, Tremaine Edmonds was supposed to be the guy, and then TJ Edwards alongside him, and that there was some veteran leadership on that team. And I don't know that they're necessarily the leaders that we need on that side of the ball. But I mean, to your point, I mean, I don't know from all the interviews that I've seen, the best that I've heard is that the mini bye is the best time for them to actually make a decision. So you give Eberflus that one more week, or Getsy that one more week, or whoever. I think honestly, I think Getsy and Fields can figure it out if they're playing with a game plan like they did today. I think that they can work together to figure it out. Amongst all the fire Getsy memes. I don't know that he's the long-term solution, but he's young enough that he could be. I don't think that we have a good sample size enough either way for Getsy. I don't want him to be a head coach by any stretch. I mean, even in the short term, I don't think he has that capacity, to lead men in that, in a head coach way. But I mean, Kevin Warren's the wild card. He's the one that we have to learn and see if he or Poles have the power to pull the trigger on an Eberflus firing. I think at this point, I don't think he makes it through to next year. I mean, unless something dramatically changes and things turn around, I don't know that Eberflus makes it through the season.
I talked about this if most of you don't know who are watching, I actually write Bears content for sportsmockery.com, and we have a Facebook group that we on Facebook Messenger that we talk throughout the game. We talk every day.
Sure.
And I brought up a scenario that dates all the way back to 1981, and check this out. In 1981, the Washington Redskins and the Bears were both struggling. Washington was 0-5. The Bears were 1-4. Washington was coming into Chicago and absolutely laid the lumber to the Bears. The Bears and Washington now are both 1-5 on the year.
Wow.
Okay. The Bears stumble. They won their last 3 games of the year to end up finishing 6-10. That's how bad they were in the weeks right after the loss. Washington, on the other hand, went from 1-5 to 8-8 and proceeded to go on in 1982 and win the Super Bowl.
Right.
The Bears stumbled to 6-10, fired Neil Armstrong, and then they hired a guy by the name of Mike Ditka, and of course the rest is history. They went on. They were, the 1982 season was the strike season, and they finished 3-6, and then they went 8-8, and then they went 10-6, and made it to the NFC title game, and so on and so on. So, Washington, from that point on in 1981, became very competitive for several years, including the 2 years after the Bears won the Super Bowl in '85.
Yeah.
And they ended up defeating the Bears in both '86 and '87 in the first game of the postseason. When we were at that time hoping that the Bears would be a dynasty, and unfortunately, the dynasty lasted one season.
Yeah. Walter Payton's final game against the Redskins.
Heartbreak. Heartbreak.
I
Heartbreak.
stopped watching football for 7 years. Literally. I mean, I was a child, when that Super Bowl was won in '85, and then to see the team just decline like that, and my hero, my childhood hero, is sitting there with his head in his hands, crying at his final game, and for it to be a loss, like just tragic ending, and that was traumatic. Traumatic as a young football fan,
I was a season ticket holder from the age of 16 in 1973
Okay.
through the 85 season.
Sure.
2 months after the Super Bowl was over, I took a promotion and ended up moving to New Orleans. And I was down in New Orleans for 2.5 years. So, and this is back in the days of VHS recordings. And so my brother would record the Bears games in 1986 and 87 and mail it to me. I would mail, he would mail one, and then I would watch it, mail that one back. And in the meantime, he would be mailing me the second one for the next game. And we traded those back and forth for 2 seasons, only for me to come home in time for the 88 season to find out that my brother had forged my name on a letter to the Bears and put the season tickets in his name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
rough.
That was pretty rough. And so when I got back in July of '88, and do you still have the tickets? Yep. I said, let me see them, and I see his name. I said, nobody gave you the right to do that. You have to put those back in my name. And he had 2 words for me, and those words were not "let's dance." And we'll end it on that.
Good stuff.
This the Bears defense it's crazy. So the Bears defense has allowed a score on the opening drive of every single game. I take that back. 3 out of 4 games in so far this year. The only team that did not score on their opening drive against the Bears were the Kansas City Chiefs. But they went on to roll 31 straight points after that first series.
Yeah, I had high hopes after that first series.
Well, we all did, but then of course reality set in real quick.
Right.
They have also allowed a score on the opening drive of every single second half opening series. So now 4 straight weeks.
Yeah, the defense doesn't.
They've allowed a score in this opening drive of the second half, and it's just it's heartbreaking. That happened, and this loss is completely avoidable. Rome, you've got the ball 4th and 1 at the 29-yard line with 2.5 minutes to play, with a tie score. Kick the field goal.
Right.
Kick the field goal.
Absolutely.
And of course,
100%.
They didn't do it, and the rest is first play from scrimmage. Russell Wilson throws a deep ball down the near side that goes and puts them almost immediately in the field goal range. Right. And at that point you could just feel
it just deflated.
The air just left that crowd, and they were just as dumbfounded as I was sitting here watching the game. It's just absolutely boggles my mind that the Bears
it's those kinds of decisions though, right? It's those kinds of decisions that eventually cost coaches their jobs.
Sure.
They pile up, and I haven't heard the press conference today to see what kind of great tackles were made, on the defense, but it seems like every press conference we're talking about great tackles instead of what the team did wrong. They did a lot right today, but there's still so much to fix. There's still so much to fix. I can hear Eberflus saying we're close. Yeah. Yeah.
We made a lot of improvement today, and we're close.
It's just the details, like the, not kicking the field goal to win the game. Yeah. Yeah, those are the kind of decisions that are gonna end up costing him his job. Ultimately, that it's not going to be the decision. I don't think, but it's one in the coffer, for sure.
The speaking of there, you had talked about the mini bye week, and that
Right.
might be a time. Washington went toe to toe with the Philadelphia Eagles today. Took them to overtime at
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Philadelphia kicked a field goal in overtime to win 34-31.
Oh man, how is Sam Howell playing? It sounds like he's doing enough.
Let me take a look at his stats here real quick.
I'm loading it up, that game now, because these are the things that when I see this team, I see what this team, our team, is capable of when they come together. It's because it's a team effort, and if this team continues to come together all season long, and we continue to see pick sixes or fumbles for a touchdown, then we know Justin Fields is the one costing us games. At this point, this one's a tough one for me because I'm a huge Justin Fields fan, and today was an outstanding day for him, and I'm not putting the entire loss on him, but the points off turnovers have been hurting. They've been hurting this team for sure.
It's been a killer, absolutely.
Yeah. But even that said, you take away that touchdown from the fumble, and it's 28-24, and the Broncos are going to play a different game if they're down by 4.
Yeah, well, it would have been 28-21 when the Broncos. Now, who knows what Chicago would have done?
You're right.
If I'm Chicago at that point, you definitely kick the field goal to go up 10.
Absolutely.
And then that means Denver has to go for the end zone.
Yeah.
But who knows? To answer your question, Sam Howell, 29 of 41 for 290 yards and 1 touchdown passing. Let's see if he ran at all. Is not credited with a run.
Okay.
So, and the Bears now have to go to Washington with an offense that just put up 31 points on the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
It's going to be an unmitigated disaster. And hopefully, I don't think the Monday Night Football game is in that flex window yet, because you can flex Monday nights now.
Sure.
You can flex Thursday night games. You can flex Sunday night games. So hopefully this Thursday night game that the Bears play in just 4 days is outside of the flex window for Thursday nights. So hopefully this will be the last nationally televised disaster that we have to sit through.
Is it?
The Bears, I will bet you, Rome, that the Bears the Vegas books are going to open up with the Bears a 10.5 point underdog.
Could be. Easily. Yeah. I could easily see that.
You play a team that gave up 300 and some odd yards rushing last week. And let's see what the Bears offensively rushing the ball.
Right.
Here we go.
Today was like what, 170?
I got to find it.
Let's see. 171. 31.
And 170, and most of that was in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Again,
Right. Yeah. Just trying to kill the clock. Right.
Good
tears by Khalil Herbert, though.
18 carries for 103 yards. Fields 4 carries for 25 yards.
Yeah.
I'm surprised,
including a 120-yard. I mean, his running was awful.
I'm surprised Roshan pretty much ran the ball uh, in the first quarter,
Yeah.
and then he
And then they kind of pulled him.
basically disappeared from the game. I don't know if he was hurt or
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
but Roshan is a more complete back than
he really
Herbert
is.
is, because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block. He can lead block. He can block in the backfield on passing situations. And of course, all Justin Fields did was set the record.
Yeah.
He set the Bears record for 16. Who was the leader with 15 straight completions?
I want to say it's going to be somebody like Shane Matthews or something.
It is Shane Matthews.
Is it really? Is
Good
it really?
for you.
I may have heard that. They may have said that during the broadcast, and it just kind of stuck with me.
They did.
I mean, Shane Matthews, all these records that he's breaking from like these almost like arbitrary quarterbacks that we've had, right? Like what has Shane Matthews accomplished for the Bears when he was here, right? Like usher in Jim Miller, you know.
Shane Matthews had the absolute most improbable comeback victory in Bears history.
Yeah, he may have. It may have been one of those games that I've successfully blocked out.
Well, it was 2001,
okay.
And the Bears finished 13-3 that year. But Mike Brown won back-to-back games with pick sixes. The first one was against San Francisco. The second was against Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns absolutely dominated that game for 58 minutes. 58 minutes, and the Bears miraculously scored a touchdown with like 30 some odd seconds to go.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was like they scored like 3 touchdowns in less than 2 minutes, something like
that.
Well,
and then they scored. They had a absolutely crazy onside kick, and then they scored a touchdown on a short Hail Mary. It was about 30 yards, but as time expired in regulation. So all of a sudden now it's 21-21. The Bears get the kickoff to start overtime and do absolutely nothing with it. Brad Maynard launches a punt. Cleveland gets the ball, and a couple of plays later, I don't remember who the defender was that deflected the ball, but Tim Couch threw a ball. It got batted up and went to the defensive right, and all of a sudden there's Mike Brown again, and just heads into the end zone along the east sideline, bends around and ran straight into the locker room and the Bears won 27-21.
Yeah, it was awesome. I do remember that one. I can't believe that was Shane Matthews at the quarterback, though, huh?
That was Shane Matthews.
Wow, huh? Did not know that. I thought. I mean, I knew it was someone that was in that, and the Henry Burris, Cordell Stewart, like together. Those are like just a giant failed quarterback in my head for some reason, And there's only like 30 of them, something like that.
Oh God, there's
Craig Krenzels and.
On Facebook, no, I'm sorry, on Twitter, there is somebody. I want to say it's Chicago, the CHGO team.
Okay, yeah.
They have a misery tour shirt, and it has a list of like 16 or 18 quarterbacks with their names with a line struck through, until you get all the way down to the bottom right where they have Justin Fields. And it's just, if I almost want to get that shirt, but who wants to celebrate misery?
Oh man. I mean, I was hugged in Meyer yesterday by a random guy. He just came up to me and he had to give me a hug because I was wearing a Peanut Tillman jersey and had my Bears hat on. He was, he had a Bears hat on too. He was kind of consoling each other.
I live in a little town that's midway. If you know where Freeport, Illinois is,
Sure.
So if you drew a straight line between Madison, Wisconsin, and Freeport, Illinois, just north of the Wisconsin-Illinois border is a little town called Monroe, Wisconsin, which is where I've called home since 2009. And there's a good mix of Bears fans and Packer fans. I'm in a mixed marriage. My wife is a Packer fan.
That's got to make it fun on Packer Week, huh?
Well, it's funny because she left the Packer bandwagon this year.
Okay.
She hasn't. I don't think has sat through an entire game. She got off the bandwagon when Aaron Rodgers bolted for New York.
Yeah, that happened.
So
she hasn't bought into the Jordan Love era yet.
She has not, and
I don't blame her.
Jordan Love had a terrible first half Thursday night against Detroit.
Yeah, he really
came back and made it interesting.
Yeah.
In the second half.
Yeah, but he did not look good.
But yeah, he's played a good game manager. Right. He hasn't gone out and excelled anywhere.
Right.
But he's been a good game manager, and unfortunately, they collapsed against Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they in the fourth quarter, and they absolutely didn't answer the bell in the first half of the game on Thursday. They got lucky against the Saints when they scored 18 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
After the Saints, who's the Saints quarterback that they
Derek Carr?
Yeah, Carr went out with a shoulder injury, and of course they didn't do anything again this week. Who do the Bears? Well, I'm sorry. We know who the Bears play. They play Washington.
Yes, they do.
Let's take a look at the rest of the NFC North here before we call it a day. We've got the Lions host the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna continue their winning ways.
Yes, they are.
The Chiefs play at Minnesota.
Okay.
So the Vikings they won their first game of the year, but they're going to
man, we are literally the worst team in the league. Like it or not.
We are right now. That's for sure. Week 5. I'm trying to find Green Bay. Does Green Bay have a bye week? Green Bay plays Monday night on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's what we've got. That's what we've got on store for next week in the NFC North.
Right.
Any predictions outside?
No, I never predict because I always fail. My heart plays far too big a role when it comes to sports. So I never make predictions. I actually decided that I was going to try FanDuel at the beginning of this year, and after about $50 and $5 bets to see if I sucked or not, I'm $50 poorer. So predictions are not my thing, but I mean I spend the week kind of going through all the games, picking through the Bears game, and going through the analysis and just trying to determine, like, what's going on, how can things change, how can we improve this team, and I feel like the roster is maybe 60% there. I feel like the last 40% of our roster is a makeup of players that have to develop. We have 2 years of rookies on this team, and talent that either we need to bring in, or talent that's already on this team that's been acquired that just needs to be coached and worked into the game plan, on both sides of the ball. And I don't know, you kind of alluded towards to what I think we're going to see this year when you talked about the transition to Mike Ditka, in that it took a year where they look like they were improved from the previous year, but it looked like you may have seen that that plateau for this coaching staff, or at least this team with the coaching staff. It's I think it's a year of experience and improvement for everyone, including the coaches. But I just don't see a future with them. And does that mean that Jim Harbaugh, we pay to have him come to Chicago? And I mean,
that's not going to happen. Rome, I'll tell you right up. The hot name that's going around in the Twitter circles, and I don't have it in front of me.
Up in Detroit,
the offensive coordinator from
Ben
Detroit.
Johnson, I think his name is.
Yeah. That's the hot name that's flying around Twitter right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. And how long has he? Do you know how long he's been with Detroit?
I don't.
Just this year, because the offense does look good, and it did look good last year. They've continued to improve. I see him being the guy. I mean, with the McCaskies, you just don't know. With Kevin Warren being the wild card that we don't know yet, we don't know Poles well enough to know if he can make that transition and make that hire. If he has the network to make that hire, I think that's a big part in being a general manager, is having the right network in place so that you can bring in different guys. I mean, if you look at it, we have Eberflus in large part due to Bill Polian. That's just the facts of the situation,
Yeah, you're right.
So that old boys club comes into play, and who do you get? And there's a lot of blame on Poles for making the decision for Eberflus, but if he had three names in front of him, that and had to make a choice, I don't know. I mean, maybe he sat down with the three of them, and they were the ones that meshed the best in terms of personality. But Poles hasn't had his opportunity to develop his process of hiring a coaching staff. So that's something we're going to see, if we're going to continue to see inexperience from Poles and from coaching staffs going forward, if the McCaskey family continues the tradition of bringing in someone inexperienced.
Well, I guess it remains to be seen. One thing that absolutely is befuddling to me, Rome, is this is Eberflus's defense, and he brought over some guys from Indy. He got probably one of the best middle linebackers available with Edmonds.
Absolutely.
And I know that they're injured in their defensive backs. Three of the five starting defensive backs were out, and one of them will still be out for a couple more weeks because he's on injured reserve. But Yannick Ngakoue has not shown up at all.
Right.
I think he got the first sack of the year against Green Bay, but since then he's been he might as well be a healthy scratch, because he hasn't scratched the defensive sheet as far as anything goes.
Right.
I don't know who got the sack today.
I want to say they credited Zach Pickens. Dominique Robinson was in on it and celebrating. He kind of had the kind of second hit, and then Zach Pickens came in and cleaned up. So I mean, and Dominique Robinson, can we talk about him for a minute?
Sure. This is your show.
I struggle with Dominique Robinson because I don't see much, and then you see him, 50 yards downfield trying to tackle the wide receiver. Like, why, how and why is that defensive end all the way, 50 yards downfield chasing after a wide receiver? That's effort. and he's young. I don't know why he's on the field necessarily on game day. Ngakoue, man, he had so much promise that first game. The second game, I think he missed Mariota on 2 sacks, where Mariota was in his grip, and yeah, he's been a disappointment. He hasn't brought the pass rush he's paid to have to produce, and what irritates me about that is we could get that out of a Dominique Robinson, and he's paid a lot less, and he's getting the reps. I feel like they're kind of doing that a lot with Pickens and Dexter Sr. I don't remember seeing Dexter Sr. much today at all. But I feel like we're seeing those young defensive tackles in more than we're seeing Jones and Billings. I got to look real quick because
Dexter got credit for 1 tackle.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, that's
the
rough.
sack, you're absolutely right. The sack was split between Pickens and Robinson. Here's something that just came through on Twitter. I get notifications on my iPad, so you keep on seeing me look down. That's the reason why. A Bears official just spoke to the press, and as we all know, Chase Claypool was a healthy scratch today.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool was asked to stay home. He wasn't even at the stadium. He was asked by the Bears to just not be there at all.
So this goes along with a theory I've been thinking about today that I really had hoped was not necessarily the case. We didn't hear enough from Pittsburgh before or after the trade about Chase Claypool. I think based on what I hear now about Chase Claypool from people in Pittsburgh, and see that he's a disturbance in the locker room. Not like a casual loafer or like it. I mean, thinking about this while I'm watching the game today and see the amount of effort, right? And at some point I even wrote it down because the commentators mentioned it and said that something about the amount of effort they're seeing out of this team today. It was after the Khalil Herbert run it was like 24 yards where he carried people for like 10, and then like for 4 yards he was almost out of the tackle and was going to take off again towards the end of the game, third, fourth quarter. That's the kind of effort that we're actually like starting to see out of the players now. You're seeing Cole Kmet actually open and looking like he wants to play the game. And that's something we saw a lot last year. We didn't really see it the first 2 or 3 games of this season at all. I mean, the best I saw of Kmet, he was to the right of Darnell Wright on a play in Tampa, if I recall. Might have been last week, but I think it was Tampa. And Darnell Wright needed to get depth on that block. And as he set back in his stance, he bumped into Kmet, and like Kmet either he didn't go out for the pass or he didn't like get outside for his block. And I think it was I almost want to say that it was the Chiefs and it was, Chris Jones. But just the defensive end didn't have to make much of a move because your 2 blockers are like sitting there bumping into each other, and if your right tackle can't get the amount of depth on a bull rush, then he's toast. And that's exactly what happened on the play, and Justin Fields was sacked. And those are the types of things. And then Justin's blamed for the sack because he didn't get rid of the ball soon enough. But if the defensive end is getting around that you're 2 dumb blockers that are just whether for scheme or what, then he's not going to stand a chance anyway. And then at the same time, you look back at the routes that we had on some of those, a lot of the plays the past 2 or 3 games, and they're not quick slants. They're not quick drops. They're 10, 15, 20 yard 15, 20, 25-yard routes that have to develop. And
Yeah, those take time. You're
and they
absolutely
take
right.
time, right? And if they're a route that takes time and they require certain timing, you can see, and not going to make excuses for the Roshan Johnson being wide open down the seam, because that was like, you should be out, like at some point you got to be able to see that play. But a play like that can be thrown off with bad timing, bad footwork, and I mean, we all know the controversy around his footwork for the past year and a
For
half.
3/4 today, Rome, he looked stellar.
Magical. He
I'm not
looked
going to say he
magical.
looked like an all-pro, but he was stellar.
Yeah.
You know, he
They
had
started
a
with
great,
quick throws. They
you
started with
know.
quick throws, and they kept up that quick passing game. And if you look, they put up a graphic at one point of how many passing yards or yards per pass, and how many all the different passes, and you saw how they started with the short passing game, the short quick passes, and then they started working in those 20-yard dips, and they were able to drop in a lot of those 20-yard passes because they had that short passing game going so well that that Denver didn't know if they were needed, going to have to be in the backfield or 15 yards down. So it was good to see them start out with the quick passing game. It was good to see him finish with the running game, with a solid running game. The defense did overall, I think, below average. I don't think they were terrible when I'm looking at. Yeah, they allowed 24 points. Being depleted, I'm not making excuses. Being depleted, if we can hold teams to under 20, I think we win most of our games. And if we don't because of turnovers, I think that's a huge problem. But our defense is still giving up 20, 25, 27 points a game, and that's as big a problem as the depleted offensive line and Justin Fields fumbling for 6.
Well, here's some. Well, before I get into the dreadful news, DJ Moore was targeted 9 times, came down with 8 for 131 yards.
131
his
yards.
touchdown.
Yeah.
Cole Kmet was targeted 9 times, grabbed 7 of those. The one he missed was the interception. That was
right.
Just painful, just a painful end of the game. 2 TDs in 85 yards. Darnell Mooney, 4 targets, 4 receptions for 51 yards. So, it was there. The passing game.
Right.
I have no complaints with the passing game.
Yeah.
Overall, I think they took the air out of the ball, and you were complimentary of the running game late in the game. But that was a time where Denver had just put up, it made it a close game. All of a sudden, it's 28-21,
right?
And they just fell apart from that point on. The fumble, return touchdown. They were blitzing on that side all game long. Why do you roll Fields right into the blitz is kind of beyond me.
Getsy still has that. Is it Nagy? Is it Tressman? Is it Shoop? Where maybe all 3, where they think they're going to trick the other team. So we're going to throw
play right into their hands.
Trick play, and it's it was a trick play 20 years ago, guys. Like, that was the stuff defenses fell for 20 years ago that they don't anymore. But we saw it. I don't think it was quite as bad this game. Once I get through the all 22s, I'll know a lot more. But I feel like the play calling went a lot better this game. You're right, though, that I almost want to say the final 2 drives, that second to last drive we had, and maybe I'm misremembering, because the fumble was the second to last drive, right?
Well, the second to last drive was the 4th and 1 instead of kicking the field goal.
Yeah, the 4th.
The last drive ended in the interception.
Yeah. I feel like the offense, and maybe that was Eberflus's thought, was the offense has been playing really well today. give them that opportunity to finish this game out and actually score a touchdown. And the thing is, when you're an 0-3 team, you heard, I think, was it Matt Ryan all game talking about how they at their 0-3, they just need to go for it, both sides of the ball, and it was every fourth down. They just need to go for it. They just need to go for it, and when you're 0-3, there's still got to be that line between we're 0-3, so let's just have at it, no holds barred, and that's what they wanted with the 4th and 2. In like the first quarter, I think.
Well, the very first possession of the game.
Yeah, the 49-yard line. Yeah.
I actually agreed with Eberflus there.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. There has to be a line between, like, we got nothing to lose to we still have something to lose, guys. Like, you still have a coaching staff that potentially someone's job could get saved if things go really, really well. I mean, if things go like today, first off, I think they turn a lot of games around. I think that crazy 8-9 prediction from ESPN, I think that is a potential reality if they play like today. They're not saying everybody's as bad as the Broncos, but the amount of effort and heart that the team played with for 3 quarters, man, just build on that in the locker room. And and going back to your Chase Claypool comment, like, if this is what it takes, if he's really that toxic, I never use the C word because, people say he's the cancer of the locker room. When you've been through cancer, you just don't want to use that word for a sport. You know what I mean?
I understand.
But if he is 100% toxic like that, it doesn't matter what the players come to the microphone and say about him, and what he's quoted in the media of how great he's working out and amazing practices and everything else. If you sit that guy at home and play like this, correlation doesn't equal causation, but that's a pretty good indicator.
Justin Fields was asked about Claypool in his presser after the game, and he had this to say, which is kind of interesting. He was told in a team meeting yesterday that Claypool was going to be a healthy scratch, and he's frustrated by the fact that one of his best weapons was not going to be in the lineup. But then he turns around and has his career best game.
Right.
So it's interesting to see what happened. We were talking about the defense a couple of minutes ago, Roman. The Bears now have lost a historic 14 straight games. No Bears teams have ever lost 14 straight games. None had lost 13 straight games.
Yeah.
Whether it spanned just 1 year or a combination, we've lost 10 and now we've lost 4 starting this year. And the fact of the matter is, every single game, at no time in the history of the franchise has a Bears team allowed an opponent to score 25 or more points 14 straight times. That's how bad this defense has turned out to be. It's just absolutely, it's week in, week out. It's the same thing. Go back to last year when they collapsed against Baltimore. They collapsed against Minnesota. Leeds. In the year before that, they collapsed against Pittsburgh.
Right.
When Justin Fields, up until today, the Pittsburgh Monday night game was probably his best game as a professional.
Oh, absolutely.
Took that team, put it on its back, scored a touchdown to give them the lead with less than 2 minutes, and of course the defense couldn't hold him. That was the Cassius Marsh hip check from the referee game. if you remember that. I want to go over some late scores. Okay. Right now, the Chargers are all over the Raiders. They're playing at home. It is 3 minutes left to go in the first half. The Chargers are all over the Raiders 24-7. The Cowboys, likewise, 18. I don't know how they got 18 points, 18-3 over the Patriots. And the 49ers are just up on the Cardinals 21-3. That game stands 5 minutes left to go in the first half. So I'm kind of looking forward to tonight's game. I think it'll be interesting. What do you think? Chiefs at Jets. How many straight possessions will Kansas City score? The Jets have a tougher defense than the Bears did.
They do have a tough. I was just going to say it's such a similar game, but the Jets' defense is oof. Yeah, they have a tough defense. It's the Patrick Mahomes value like that. That's the big question, right? Every game is how is he going to play? But he always plays well. that's really the bottom line. I mean, his worst games are still pretty good, and that's that off script factor that Josh Lucas talked about last week. In a couple of interviews as the director of player personnel for the Bears when they drafted Mitch Trubisky, he said that that Mahomes was he was the second the second target of theirs. If somebody had taken Trubisky, then they would have taken Mahomes, and he talked about how it wasn't his. Like Mahomes wasn't necessarily his choice because of the number of off-script plays he made in college and the amount he relied on that game versus a game plan or a strategy. And because I should qualify because those kinds of players over time haven't really been successful in the NFL. I mean, you have players that do well in the NFL as off-script quarterbacks, but the vast majority have come in and just not been able to convert to the speed of the game. So I mean, again, I don't gamble, because I get bit when I do. I don't make predictions, but you can bet pretty well that they're gonna take care of the Jets. I mean, pretty handily, as they say, and the Chiefs are going to be off to another great start for a season.
I had a 4-team parlay card.
Yeah.
And the Bears cost me a couple $100.
Yeah, it happens.
But since the game, I had Bears +3.
Okay.
So since that game ended up being a push, my card still won, but it only won $247 instead of $500 some odd dollars.
That's a bummer, yeah.
So that's the second card I've won in back-to-back weeks, and I had a push on each one of those cards.
Nice.
So
better than a loss.
Yep, absolutely. And then I would have had another card that would have come through. I had Detroit and the over on Thursday night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if I would have picked Buffalo in the over, that card would have won. But I picked Miami in the over, and of course they got killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. How in the world you score 70 points one week and only 20 the next after scoring your first 2 times you had the ball, and they have a defense that allows 48 points.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Well, Miami's defense has given up 68 points in the last 2 weeks.
Oof. That's rough. I mean, you think about that stat and you're like, oof. And then you think about how they laid a 70 burger on Denver and let them score 20 points, and it's not quite as bad, but almost 50 points given up by a defense. That's rough. I don't know. I don't watch the Dolphins close enough to know how good or bad their defense is. I'm spending more time on the NFL this year than I have in many years. It's just been more exciting since last year, and my perception of the Dolphins is I mean, they can sling it, and they're just hoping that they can sling it every game. They're just hoping they can beat people with speed and getting the ball downfield. Other than that, that makes it really tough to win games when you're giving up those kinds of points.
Absolutely. Well, the Bears play Thursday night.
Right.
So
yeah.
we will see everybody about 10:30.
Okay.
Thursday night, and
hopefully we don't repeat last season's Thursday night game. Against the Commanders, the old 12-7 baseball score.
That was. I guarantee you, it won't be 12-7.
Oof, no, no, it will not.
look at the numbers the Washington offense has put up so far this year.
Yeah,
it's absolutely insane, and they just took, as we talked about earlier in the show, they took the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, playing on the road.
Yeah.
Into overtime, scoring 31 points against the Eagles defense. So it might be a real short show Thursday night once we get on. But
That's fair.
I hope everybody has enjoyed our inaugural post-game show, courtesy of the Windy City End Zone. Catch the Windy City End Zone. The website is windycityendzone.football, and you can find them on Facebook. Their Facebook pages, just of course, is Windy City End Zone. So with that, with Rome, this is Mike Halatek saying good night, everybody. Hopefully, will be better days ahead.
Bear down.
Bear down.